My name is Daniel. I've been a registered nurse since 2021. By the fall of 2023, I was working permanent night shifts at a regional hospital just outside Dayton, Ohio. Most nurses hated nights. I actually liked them. The hallways were quieter. There were fewer visitors. After midnight, things usually settled down enough that I could focus on my patients without constantly being interrupted. I honestly believed I'd seen everything a hospital could throw at me. Looking back, I couldn't have been more wrong. I worked on a medical surgical floor with 24 patient rooms. The nurses' station sat in the middle of one long hallway. There were supply rooms at both ends, a staff lounge near the back stairwell, and a handful of empty rooms that maintenance used whenever something needed repairs. After nearly 2 years on that floor, I knew every sound the building made. The ice machine rattled every hour. The air conditioning kicked on around 2 in the morning. One of the hand sanitizer dispensers outside room 217 liked to activate by itself every now and then. None of that bothered me anymore. The first strange thing happened on a rainy Thursday in October. I clocked in just before 7 that evening. It looked like it was going to be an easy shift. I only had 4 patients. 2 of them slept most of the night. 1 was recovering from surgery. The last was an older man who'd been admitted after a bad fall. By 11:30, I had finished passing medications and sat down at the nurse's station to catch up on my charting. That's when I looked up and saw a man standing at the far end of the hallway. He wasn't wearing scrubs. He wasn't dressed like a visitor either. Just a dark hoodie, blue jeans. His hands were in his pockets. He wasn't doing anything, just standing there. I figured he'd wandered onto the wrong floor. It happens sometimes. I looked back at my computer for maybe 15 seconds. When I looked up again, he was gone. No footsteps, no elevator, nothing. I brushed it off. A few minutes later, one of the nursing assistants walked over. "You okay?" she asked. "Yeah." "You keep staring down the hallway." "I thought I saw somebody." She looked toward the end of the corridor. "I didn't see anyone," I shrugged. "Probably a visitor." She nodded and walked away. By midnight, I'd already forgotten about it. Around 12:40, I headed toward the supply room to grab IV tubing. Halfway there, I heard footsteps behind me, slow, steady, the kind of sound rubber shoes make on polished hospital floors. I assumed another nurse was following me. I unlocked the supply room and stepped inside. The footsteps stopped. I turned around. Nobody. I leaned into the hallway and looked both directions. Empty. The hospital was completely quiet. I laughed at myself. Hospitals echo. Sounds bounce off the walls. That had to be it, or at least, that's what I told myself. A few minutes later, one of my patients hit the call button. When I walked into his room, he looked confused. "Did my son already leave?" "You haven't had any visitors tonight," I told him. He frowned. "I heard someone outside my door." "It was probably one of us checking on you." He slowly shook his head. "No." "He never came inside. He just stood there." Something about the way he said it made me glance through the window in his door. The hallway was empty. I checked his vitals, made sure he was comfortable, and left. But I couldn't stop thinking about what he'd said. Around 2:15, the rain outside became heavier. The windows at the end of the hallway shook every few minutes. The whole floor felt unusually quiet. While restocking gloves, I noticed something strange. Room 221 was open. That room had been closed for almost 2 weeks because maintenance was repairing water damage. Nobody was supposed to be inside. I walked over. The lights didn't work. The room was dark, empty. I pulled the door shut and went back to work. About 20 minutes later, I walked past it again. The door was open, exactly the way I'd found it before. I stopped. I knew I'd closed it. This time I shut it harder. The latch clicked. I even tested it. Everything seemed fine. By the time I reached the nurse's station, I looked back. The door was open again, just a few inches. I stared at it. Nobody else seemed to notice. I walked back, checked the latch again. Nothing looked broken. I stepped inside with my phone flashlight on. Dust covered the floor. Maintenance buckets sat beneath exposed pipes. Nobody was there. No windows were open. No air was moving. Nothing should have been able to push that heavy door open. I reported the latch to maintenance and tried to forget about it. At 3:30, I finally took my break. The staff lounge was next to the old stairwell almost nobody used anymore. I heated up leftovers in the microwave and sat down. A minute later, I heard the stairwell door open. The metal hinges groaned. Someone stepped into the hallway. I expected another employee to walk past the lounge. Nobody did. I waited. Nothing. I stepped outside. The hallway was empty. I opened the stairwell door. The motion lights slowly turned on one floor at a time. No voices, no footsteps, just silence. As I turned back toward the lounge, I noticed wet footprints on the floor, fresh ones, as if someone had walked in from the rain. They started at the stairwell, continued down the hallway, then suddenly stopped. They didn't turn. They didn't fade away. They simply ended, like whoever made them had disappeared in the middle of the corridor. I stared at them for several seconds before grabbing my radio. "Has anybody been near the staff lounge?" A nurse answered almost immediately. "No, why?" I looked at the footprints again. They were already beginning to dry. "No reason," I said. "I thought I heard someone." About 15 minutes later, security arrived and searched the entire floor. Patient rooms, storage closets, maintenance areas, both stairwells. They found absolutely nothing. As they were leaving, one of the officers stopped beside me. "You first saw him around 11:30? "Yeah." He exchanged a quick look with his partner before speaking again. "That's strange." "Why?" He hesitated. "Because another nurse on the 3rd floor reported seeing a man in a dark hoodie standing outside an empty patient room." He glanced toward the dark end of the hallway. "At almost the exact same time." The security officers searched the entire floor, every patient room, every storage closet, both stairwells. They didn't find anyone. Before leaving, one of them asked me, "You first saw him around 11:30? I nodded. He looked at his partner. "That's strange." Another nurse reported seeing a man in a dark hoodie outside an empty room at almost the exact same time. That was the moment I realized I wasn't the only one. 3 nights later, I was back at work. Everything seemed normal until I got a text from a nurse on another floor. I just saw the hoodie guy again. He said the man had been standing outside another empty room. Security searched the building. Again. They found nothing. Later that night, I went into a storage room to grab supplies. As soon as I stepped inside, the door closed behind me. I grabbed the handle. It wouldn't open. I called out. No answer. Then I heard slow footsteps outside. Someone stopped right outside the door. I asked them to let me out. Silence. A few seconds later, the footsteps walked away. Then the door slowly opened by itself. The hallway was empty. Security checked the camera. According to the footage, nobody had been outside the room. I had been completely alone. That was enough for me. 3 months later, I transferred to another hospital. I told everyone it was for better pay. The truth was, I couldn't spend another night in that building. Months later, I met a former coworker for coffee. I asked if they had ever figured out who the man was. He shook his head. They never found anyone. Then he told me something that still bothers me. During a renovation, workers found a small, hidden maintenance space behind one of the hallway walls. Inside, there was only an old metal chair. It faced a small vent that looked directly down the same hallway where nurses kept reporting the man in the hoodie. No fingerprints, no personal belongings, nothing, just a chair. Sometimes I tell myself there has to be a logical explanation. Maybe there is, but even now, whenever I walk through a quiet hospital late at night, I still look toward the end of every hallway, because I'm never completely sure. No one is standing there, watching,